Or last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do the audience.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm
Thank
Tina,
you.
and this is my tribute speech, and this is my audience.
Kimberly. Rhonda. Taylor.
Tammy. Nicole.
And Rainer.
Marilyn Monroe once said, "I want to grow old without facelifts. I want to have the courage to be loyal to the face I've made. Sometimes I think it would be easier to avoid old age, to die young. But then you never complete your life, would you? You never wholly know yourself." We have all heard of Marilyn Monroe, but I think very few of us would say we know very much about her, other than what she looked like, some of her films, and her iconic skirt scene. Marilyn Monroe is one of my favorite actresses of all times, who didn't live a very long life, but in her short time became an American icon whose memory will never die. Today, I'm going to dig a little deeper into her life she led. In doing my research, I learned just how much tenacity this woman had. I'm going to talk to you about her younger years, her acting career, her later years, and her untimely death. Marilyn Monroe's childhood was a very unstable one. According to the National Biography Online, Marilyn Monroe was born June 1st, 1926. Her name at birth was Norma Jean Morstein, and she was also known by Norma Jean Baker. Her mother was Gladys Monroe Baker Morstein, and her father has never been identified. Her mother suffered with severe mental depression, which led to Marilyn being put into foster care at just 2 weeks old. She lived with Albert and Ida Boylander for the first 7 years of her life until she was reunited with her mother in 1933. She lived with her mother until 1934, when her mother was admitted to a rest home, suffering once again from severe depression. Marilyn then moved in with Grace McKee, one of Marilyn's mom's really good friends, and she stayed with her for 1 year until Grace got married and couldn't financially care for her anymore. So she had to go to an orphanage for 2 years. But during that time, Grace still came and visited her. She bought her clothes, took her to the movies, and even taught her how to put makeup on even though she was really young. And eventually, Marilyn went to go live with some of Grace's relatives until she actually did go and move back in with Grace and her husband. At just 15 years old, she met a man named Jim Doherty, 5 years her senior. And Grace encouraged Marilyn to get married to him because Grace and her husband were moving across country and they couldn't afford to take Marilyn with her. So it was either married or go to an orphanage. So she chose to get married to Jim. And they married in 1942, and she was just barely 16. And she dropped out of high school because of this. Doherty joined the Merchant Marines and was sent overseas in 1944. Marilyn started working at a factory as a parachute inspector, and during this time is when photographers were coming in and they were taking pictures of the women on assembly lines, and she got noticed. And according to ellensplace.net, she quickly became known as a photographer's dream, and by the spring of 1945, 1 year of first being photographed, she graced the cover of 33 national magazines. She divorced Jim in 1946. All of this newfound publicity helped launch her acting career, which is what I'm going to discuss now. According to ellensplace.net, Marilyn had her first screen test at the age of 20. She signed a contract with the 20th Century Fox on July 23, 1946. This was when she adopted the stage name as Marilyn Monroe, taking on her mom's family name. She had her first minor role in Scott-a-Ho, Scott-a-Hay. Marilyn was then dismissed from her contract in August of the same year and was told that she should become a prostitute in order to support herself. She was rehired by 20th Century Fox in 1948 and had her first singing role in the movie Ladies of Chorus. At this time, Johnny Hyde of the William Morris Agency became her mentor and lover. She agreed to pose nude in a calendar in 1949. Bigger roles started pouring in for her in 1950s, such as The Asphalt Jungle and All About Eve, which both received favorable reviews. She was being typecast, though, as a dumb blonde. And according to PBS.org, this is something that bothered her throughout her entire career. And even though she wasn't seen as a serious actress, they signed her for a 7-year contract with the 20th Century Fox. In 1952, she played a more dramatic role in The Clashes by Night, Don't Bother to Knock, and Niagara. Niagara actually is what established her stardom. And a writer for the New York World Telegram and Sun News, Alan Cook, according to ellenspost.net, wrote that this performance starring a fierceful actress, a gifted new star, worthy of the fantastic press and gentry. Her role is not big, but she made it dominant. In 1953, she once again put into roles as the dumb blonde in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, which is her most famous film. And in it, she sings her trademark song, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. After filming this film, her and her co-star actually got to be put on the star on the Hollywood's Walk of Fame. Marilyn becomes one of the most publicized popular actresses in America, and I've talked to you about her childhood and how she became a star. Now I'm going to talk about her later years up until her untimely death. In 1952, Marilyn Monroe meets Joe DiMaggio. He's a retired baseball player who set out to meet a famous star. The two of them started dating and were married in January of 1954. At this time, the revelation of her posing nude in that calendar came back to haunt her, and the studio refused to put her in roles that were more serious because they weren't taking her serious anymore. So she starred in the movie There's No Business the Show Business, and her marriage to Joe DiMaggio ends October of 1854, only 10 months after she got married. Marilyn starts showing side effects from sleeping pills that she started taking over, and she's showing up groggy for the set, and nobody's taking her seriously anymore. In 1955, she films The 7-Year Itch, with her famous skirt blowing scene. This film makes her a sex symbol and becomes every man's desire. After filming this movie, Marilyn breaks her contract with 20th Century Fox. She meets and marries playwright Arthur Murray in 1956. Throughout their marriage, they try to have a baby, which never happens. Marilyn returns to the big screen for some of her best performances in The Bus Stop, Some Like It Hot, Let's Make Love, and her last film, The Misfits. She divorced Arthur in 1961 and this time started taking more and more drugs. She had a brief affair with President John F. Kennedy. Then she also started dating Joe DiMaggio again. She agreed to remarry Joe and set a date for August 8, 1962. She was also rehired by Century 21 Fox on October 1st to complete the movie Something's Got to Give. None of these things would come to pass. Marilyn Monroe died August 5th, 1962 at the age of 36 of a drug overdose. There's much controversy surrounding her death. They all know that she didn't commit suicide, but they are uncertain if it was an accident or if somebody administered the deadly dose. In conclusion, I hope you learned something today that you might not have known about Marilyn Monroe. I've discussed the unstable childhood, her acting career, her later years, and her untimely death. I want to grow old without facelifts. I want to have the courage to be loyal to the face I've made. Sometimes I think it would be easier to avoid old age, to die young, but then you never complete your life, would you? You never wholly know yourself. That was Marilyn Monroe. When she made that statement, she had no idea that her life would be cut short. Thank you. This is my audience.
Kimberly. Veronica. Taylor.
Tammy. Nicole.
Rainer.